Ferrari took advantage of the first free practice session at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix to quietly test an early prototype of its new 2026 Formula One steering wheel, a component that at first glance might appear rather insignificant, but which, in reality, reveals an important shift in design philosophy. The wheel, noticeably slimmer and lighter than the current version, seems to anticipate a much broader approach to the next regulatory cycle. Ferrari appears to have redesigned not only the size but also the fundamental layout of the rotary switches and controls. Although this may seem like a marginal detail to casual observers, elements like driver ergonomics, weight distribution, and the speed of adjustments play an increasingly decisive role in modern Formula One. For this reason, the Maranello team's early experimentation gives us a valuable preview of its technical direction. It is worth noting that the final race weekend of the season in Abu Dhabi often becomes an open-air laboratory for Formula One teams. With the championship long decided and development cycles nearing their conclusion, outfits traditionally use the first practice sessions to gather data, validate concepts, and even evaluate prototype components for the following season. However, the upcoming revolution planned for 2026, involving sweeping changes to chassis regulations, aerodynamics, energy recovery systems, and engine deployment, means that many of the elements currently used on the 2025 cars will become obsolete or only partially compatible. As a result, only a handful of teams opted to make full use of FP1 and FP2 for testing long-term solutions. Among those teams was Ferrari, which, without resorting to the visually noticeable rake sensors or elaborate developmental equipment commonly used in the past, still provided a discreet yet meaningful look toward the future. During practice, the team entrusted young driver Arthur Leclerc with an experimental steering wheel that represents Ferrari's early vision for 2026 ergonomics. Even though it might appear like a tiny step in the larger context of Formula One's technical development, the prototype already offers multiple layers of intriguing insight. The design of the new Ferrari steering wheel does not directly emulate the one used in the Ferrari 499p hypercar that competes in the FIA World Endurance Championship, despite the fact that some superficial similarities might be noticed at first glance. Instead, the real reference point remains the Formula One steering wheel that Ferrari has used up to the present season. The wheel has been reimagined primarily for the purpose of reducing mass while keeping the essential functional architecture intact. The distinctive horns shape seen at the top of the prototype follows a calculated aerodynamic and ergonomic logic. The sharp sculpted areas in the structure help save several grams of weight, an important factor considering how tight the minimum weight limits will be under the new rules. Meanwhile, the raised outer sections serve as housing for the front differential adjustment wheel and a secondary button placed behind the structure. This results in an unusual wave-shaped profile that may appear unconventional, but is designed entirely for functionality and driver comfort. Another noticeable aspect is the slimmer overall profile of the wheel compared to its predecessor, which featured a more pronounced bulge on the rear surface. This suggests that Ferrari has redesigned the internal electronics and reorganized their distribution, potentially due to improved integration with the standard electronic board supplied by Motion Applied. Less bulk at the back of the wheel not only saves weight, but also enhances comfort during long stints, particularly when drivers operate numerous controls while navigating tight multi-apex sections, such as those found in modern street circuits like Singapore or Jeddah. Despite these new features, the core structure of the rear paddles remains essentially the same. The side paddles still allow drivers to make rapid adjustments to various car parameters during the lap, while the clutch and gearbox paddles appear to have received only subtle refinements rather than a full redesign. Ferrari seems to be keeping what already works well while modernizing areas that offer room for improvement. Where the most substantial transformation takes place is on the front side of the wheel. Here, Ferrari breaks away from the philosophy adopted throughout the previous decade. The central rotary switches that manage brake balance, differential levels, and other rapid access settings remain unchanged in quantity. 6 main rotaries in total, ensuring that Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton will maintain the familiar core adjustment method. However, the rest of the wheel shows a completely reimagined layout. The upper section, including the cluster of lights and buttons, has been redesigned from scratch. Certain functions have been repositioned closer to the display screen to improve visibility and reduce reaction time. Many of these changes will be customized depending on the driver's habits and natural hand placement, something that top-level drivers value immensely. The changes in the lower section of the wheel are even more radical. Traditionally, Ferrari avoided grouping multiple functions into a single rotary switch. For example, one rotary switch previously handled race strategy input, allowing drivers to communicate tire status directly without the need for radio messages. This technique, implemented during the years of Sebastian Vettel's driving tenure, kept sensitive information away from competitors while reducing distraction and maintaining full focus on the race. Other rotaries were responsible for engine modes, quick presets, deployment maps, and secondary power unit settings. This approach, heavily influenced by Sebastian Vettel's preference for having every essential function immediately at hand, helped the driver manage race conditions without diving into deeper software submenus, an action that could cost tenths of a second or more on track. Fewer rotaries, more software is a major shift for the Italian side. For the 2026 design, Ferrari appears to be embracing a new philosophy that brings it closer to the approach Lewis Hamilton and his engineers used at Mercedes during his long and successful tenure. On the prototype tested by Arthur Leclerc, the number of lower rotary switches was reduced dramatically, shrinking from 6 to just 3, which coincidentally matches the setup Lewis Hamilton used while racing for Mercedes at Brackley. This reduction suggests that Ferrari has consolidated less frequently used functions into submenus within the digital interface. The wheel becomes cleaner, more compact, and less visually overwhelming for the driver. The smaller number of physical rotaries, however, does not indicate fewer total functions. Instead, it implies a deliberate shift toward more digital layers and smarter software integration. Drivers will still have access to all operational parameters, but will navigate them with improved clarity. The streamlined lower section also results in a clean-cut design, reminiscent of steering wheels used by Mercedes or Sauber in recent seasons. In the case of Sauber, this design choice was heavily influenced by the preferences of Valtteri Bottas, who adopted an ergonomic shape inspired by the Mercedes layout used during his time alongside Lewis Hamilton. The benefits of this simpler yet highly efficient design extend beyond pure operability. The reduction in material mass helps lower the overall steering wheel weight, a factor that will become increasingly vital as Formula One cars face new minimum weight challenges under the 2026 rules. At the same time, more space is freed up in the cockpit area for the driver's legs, improving comfort and movement, a subtle yet meaningful improvement during long stints on physically demanding circuits like Austin or Silverstone. All these small details, taken together, signal the beginning of Ferrari's broader transformation ahead of the 2026 Formula One Championship. The redesigned wheel is not just a physical component, but a symbol of a new approach, blending weight optimization, ergonomic clarity, and a revised operating philosophy. This early prototype hints at the level of work already underway at Maranello, as the team prepares for an era in which efficiency, software integration, and driver adaptability will play an even greater role than before.